Good morning and welcome to the June 12th, 2025 Landmarks Commission meeting. It's nice to see everyone in person and also everyone virtually. In compliance with notification requirements of the Ohio Open Meeting Law in Section 101.021 of the Codified Ordinance of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts this meeting based on the Roberts Rules of Order. Actions during the meeting will be taken by roll call vote. Recusal from any case due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the beginning of a presentation. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, virtual attendees will use the raised hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raised hand feature can be found on the participants panel on the desktop and mobile versions and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait till the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the hand icon again and muting your microphone. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. All meeting activities are being recorded via WebEx on the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter submitted through proper channels have been considered. Proper channels for comments are sending an email to landmarks@clevelandohio.gov email address with a comment or letter, calling or leaving a message at 216-664-2532, or sending a letter or dropping off comments at City Hall located at 601 Lakeside Avenue, Suite 519. Communication with members of this body must follow proper channels for consideration. Any comments received by the stated deadline are collected by Landmark staff and disseminated to the Commission prior to the beginning of the scheduled meeting. Mr. Musson, would you like to go through the rules and procedures?
Yes, to go through the meeting rules and procedures, the chair will call each agenda item and then each applicant will be invited to proceed through their presentation. Each presentation should be completed prior to questions and comments from the commission in order to facilitate a smooth presentation. Once the presentation is concluded, the chair will ask Landmark staff to summarize design review advisory committee recommendations and any public comments received. The deadline for public comments is noon on the Tuesday prior to any regularly scheduled Cleveland Landmarks Commission meeting. Any received comments are distributed to commission members prior to the meeting, and staff will identify any members of the public present scheduled to speak. Public comment is allowed at the discretion of the chair, and any individual providing public comment is permitted 2 minutes to speak to the agenda item in which they have an interest. The chair will then request a recommendation from staff, and the commission will then begin deliberations and project review. Any commission member, except the chair, may make a motion at any point after an agenda item has been called.
We'd like to call the June 12th, 2025 Landmarks Commission meeting to order. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Here.
Mr. Dreyer?
Here.
Mr. Dulick?
Here.
Councilmember Gray? Mr. Lozier?
Here.
Director Mersman?
Here.
Mr. Sambry?
Here.
Mr. Strickland?
Here.
Mr. Trosick?
Here.
Dr. Williams? And Ms. Trott?
Here.
Madam Chair, we do have quorum. I'd also like to note that we have Jessica Beam and myself from Landmark staff present in the office. Carl Brenges is joining us virtually, and Sierra Lipscomb is here representing us from the law department.
Excellent. Well, then we will begin with our certificates of appropriateness for today. We'd like to call our first applicant forward to tell us about your project. The first project is located at 13500 Ardoon Avenue, a window replacement. Good morning.
Abby McConaughey.
Do you mind hitting the microphone? You're fine. And this is just to record, so you can just continue to talk to us.
Abby McConaughey, 13500 Ardoon Avenue.
Excellent. Welcome. So just a little housekeeping, that Jessica controls the presentation. So whenever you want it to advance, just let her know.
Okay, great. And also we have Jeff with Universal Windows as well with. So this is just showing where our house is located. So Shaker Square, so we are northeast of Shaker Square, kind of in between Northmoreland, Larchmere, Coventry, and Shaker. We're kind of a little pocket neighborhood tucked in. This is our home. So these are just the elevations. So that's the front elevation, the driveway, east side elevation, our rear south facing. Oh, sorry.
It's a little slow, so give it a second.
sorry.
That's okay.
And then our west side elevation. This is the current condition of all the windows. They were original to the house. We are the third owners of this home. All the windows are lead-based paint, really poor condition. They are either falling apart, they are not functioning. The store windows are failing and also very hideous on the home. They're also not environmentally friendly. We have to put in like gauze from caulk during the winter and summer. You can feel breezes just coming in through the windows. Just another couple images of the condition of these windows. And then, so just pointing out the windows we would like to have replaced. So the front facade, all of the large windows we would like to have replaced. The side elevation, we want the two larger windows, kitchen sink and then bedroom, leaving the original smaller windows. And off the rear, we would like to replace all the windows off the back, and then the left one is going up the stairwell. And then the west side elevation is master bedroom up top, and then the three kind of a extra space, and then the restroom. So these are notes from the Universal Windows. So our goal is to replace most of the windows in the house. We have a small child. We'd like to get rid of the lead paint. We'd like to be able to functionally open windows in our home. We've lived there for almost 10 years now and cannot use the windows. They're not safe, and we're very concerned about the lead paint. Jeff, would you like to speak?
To speak. Good morning, everybody. I appreciate you having me this morning. I'm working with Abby as far as the scope of the work. My company, Universal Windows Direct, will be taking on process. As Abby mentioned before, there is lead-based paint. We are lead certified company to make sure that not only is the removal of all the windows done properly, but the cleanup is per EPA guidelines, which is obviously important for health and safety. And the inside of the windows, we would leave the original casing to keep the integrity of the home. The exterior of the home, Abby had just shown you, shows the both top and bottom stitches, where for her project specifically, we are keep the original architectural look of the home as far as the color pattern being just at the top of the top sash of every window. We will be removing all of the store windows as well as part of the installation process. So from the street point of view, the architectural look we will be keeping as original to the home. We did notice, speaking ahead of turn of what was originally spoken, there are other types of windows out there. There are the 100% virgin PVC windows. And the purpose of that, not only as far as upkeep and longevity, but it's a better fit, in my opinion, versus a vinyl clad window. The vinyl clad window, which was approved by the board, I believe, as reading through the notes, the concern with that is when you have a vinyl clad over wood, there are seams that tend to pull out from the frame. They tend to curl and warp. and peel away from the actual wood. Water gets inside, it gets trapped, which can warp it and further damage it. And then from a pricing perspective, obviously with the homeowner, it's a little bit more advantageous financially. But the important thing here is to make sure, from your point of view, that aesthetically we get a great appearance to keep the architectural look of the neighborhood, which is obviously very important. And we feel like doing so with this quality of window and this style of window would do just that. Again, the quality of the PVC, but also we put an industry high amount of titanium dioxide in the vinyl, which reflects the harmful UV rays, which will keep the window from yellowing, so it'll stay that bright white look for quite some time, for decades. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. So we spent, quite a bit of time going through the project, Abby and myself and her husband, to make sure that architecturally the look was gonna meet the standards of the neighborhood. And we did notice, discussed earlier, that the home to the west of her already had vinyl windows in the front of the home as well. I'm not sure how that plays into it, but focusing on specifically her home, we feel like that was the best bet for the longevity of the window, the operation, the efficiency of the window, the health of the family inside the home, as well as the architectural look of the home, keeping it as original as possible. So again, thank you. If you need any other information from me, feel free to ask, and I can answer any questions to the best of my ability. So thank you again for all of your time.
Thank you for the presentation. Is anything else?
I just wanted to say, could you go back to like one of the first images of just the street view? So like Jeff said, we are planning to, the new windows would have the same exact matching grid on the uppers. So they'd be double hung, look exactly, the same from the street. They would just be functional and more environmentally eco-friendly for our utility bills, as well as safe for children. We love this neighborhood. We want to improve this home. Financially, this is what we could afford. And, we'd like to improve this home. Its windows aren't really dire condition. So, yeah.
Thank you for the presentation. Before we go into our discussion, we'd like to hear feedback from the local design review committee.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Greater Cuyahoga Valley Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on the 3rd. They discussed the proposed windows, the color, the appearance. They did appreciate the grids being kept and the openings being retained, and overall recommended approval for the vinyl placement on the secondary elevations, but to conform to our window replacement policy, their condition was for the front facade to be in aluminum clad wood or fiberglass options with the same matching grid pattern.
Okay, thank you. And then Landmark staff recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, with much all vinyl window projects, staff recommends that, applicants follow the guidelines laid out in the residential window repair and replacement policy. We understand that there are cost considerations with upgraded materials on the front. So that is always an issue. And when an applicant chooses not to or cannot meet the guidelines in that policy, it comes to the commission. So this is another one of those cases where, it doesn't meet our guidelines in the policy. So you guys get to make the decision on it. But it's architecturally, the house, kind of like the one we saw a few weeks ago, the white scheme that is being proposed goes better with the architecture of the house than in some cases we've seen before. So leave it to you guys.
All right, thank you. Then we'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Would like to start us off?
Madam Chair, I have a question perhaps for fellow commission members or staff. As someone that isn't an expert in different window types. Can someone sort of walk me through how a fiberglass window would be different than what is proposed in terms of experience or visual impact? Or could you just sort of talk through the reason why that is recommended over what is proposed?
I'm happy to field that unless one of
Go ahead, Dave.
commission members wants to. Yeah, I think there's probably different opinions on the different, yes, why the different windows are, you know, more appropriate in different conditions. But typically, you know, the longevity of a fiberglass window or an aluminum clad window exceeds that of a vinyl window. There's also the, I guess, the depth of the pane of glass within the window itself. Looks more convincingly like a historic window than the vinyl ones tend to be rather flat. So you don't have that kind of depth shadow line detail. You know, vinyl windows have come, I'd say, a long way in the last, 20, 30 years. So they're getting more convincing. And so, that's why, I think staff and the commission are open to new vinyl products. Like, we've checked out a few products over the past couple of years where, the salesperson has said this, this is going to look like aluminum clad wood. So we go and look at it in the field and it's, varying degrees of convincing. A lot of times the Muntons, or the grids, in the vinyl windows, you tend to see those between the panes. Aluminum clad wood and fiberglass windows, it's a little easier to do those on the exterior. That makes it more convincing. There's also, when you have triple track storms over the windows, it's already got a pane of glass in front of it. So it's sort of, I guess, limited return. But, generally it's the kind of integrity and longevity of the window that's a driving factor, but also just those kind of details, which depending on the location can be significant. If you're looking at it from the street, the average person might not notice, but if you're, up on a front porch or something, it's more noticeable. So, I don't know if that answers your question.
Thank you. That's very helpful.
Okay, thank you. Other questions and comments from the commission? I guess I'll just, make the statement just so that we're in per our standards to uphold the Secretary of Interior standards. Vinyl windows typically are not acceptable within a historic district. We do make exceptions because we do understand, as Mr. Mustin said, that, there is a cost increase related to this. So I'm in support of making an exception for the secondary elevations of the side, two sides in the rear. But I would have to agree with the committee's recommendation of in support of replacement of the windows, but with a alternate material than the vinyl, either the fiberglass or the aluminum clad wood, for consistency of upholding our standards.
I understand that puts us under a financial burden, so our option would be to just not replace those front windows and leave them, looking terrible from the street. Like, you can visibly see them. We don't have a front porch, but as you walk up our front stoop, you can see the paint chipping. The existing storm windows are cracked, damaged. We would love, our house to look nice from the street. So, that's kind of our options are leave them.
And we appreciate that you want to invest in your property because we think, it shows you obviously take pride in your house. And we appreciate that you're trying to maintain that, improve your house. But those are our standards. So at this point, I'd have to say that I'm aligned, with the committee's recommendation. Other feedback from the commission?
A couple questions.
Mr. Sandberg?
Go.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Have you, I realize that the aluminum clad windows or the fiberglass are more costly. Have you explored the getting those windows for that front facade and the cost difference? Have you, because I think you would have to talk to a different vendor. Yeah, so I don't know if you've done that.
We did. It's astronomical.
Okay, right, okay.
So we did, put a down payment down for these windows and then we're financially
And you're getting a loan to, okay. Okay. All right. Thank you.
Mr. Stanberry, thank you, Ms. Anderson. Mr. Stanberry?
And this may be for Jeff. Do the simulated divided light, that on the outside, inside, and middle of the panes, where does that sit?
Just to be clear, the question was from me, sir.
Correct. Where do the grid, the simulated divided light sit within the window panes?
So the simulated divided lights are in between the sashes, or excuse me, in between the two panes of glass. I will say I'm very familiar. I've sold fiberglass products before, and it's a great product. And I will tell you that in almost every circumstance with a fiberglass product, you're going to have the grids on the inside of the window now. Okay. I would say that if you're going to find, these are called molded grids. Molded grids are on the exterior of the window. And that's more typical with your wood windows. But even with the wood now, they're starting to go in between the glass. But virtually all fiberglass windows, the grids are on the inside of the glass. The width, the frame of the window is very comparable as well. So if you're standing and taking the picture here, as shown on the screen from the front of the house, I would be hard pressed to tell the difference between a high quality vinyl window and a fiberglass window. Now you could make an argument for the wood looking a little bit different with the molded grids, but again, I think that's being that there are storm windows on the outside already from the current vantage point, the current view of the windows. I think it's kind of moot, but again, I understand exactly, what the gentleman was saying earlier about the differences. There are some lower quality vinyl window products, and there are some low quality fiberglass products as well, and wood. I'm replacing wood windows that are rotted, that are 8 or 9 years old. There are lawsuits with manufacturers that have wood windows that were supposed to be premium that are rotted. But from a aesthetic standpoint, I would say it'd be very, very extremely difficult to show the difference between a fiberglass window and a vinyl window from the street, or even up close, especially with an aluminum clad. An aluminum clad versus vinyl, even window people would be hard pressed to tell the difference.
We are losing your connection some, so I believe we heard your last statement, which that even a window person would be hard pressed to see the difference. Did you say anything after that?
No,
Perfect. Thank you.
And
Thank you.
then, do these windows have storms as well on the outside, screens and storms?
they do. Storm windows have gone to the west side. It's redundant. Storm windows often offer protection to the windows in terms of efficiency from weathering, but it's redundant now. They're not necessary. Storm windows, I don't know if it puts new storm windows on windows unless they are they're just in short, no. To answer your question,
Thank you.
And-
And then,
window replacements are nobody windows up.
to the owner, have you looked into restoring any of the windows?
So we did try, my husband and I, to restore them. I think, got 3 completed in about 6 months. Reglazing windows is extremely, extremely hard work. And this was before we had our son, so we weren't as concerned like we were ventilators and everything for scraping and removing the old paint. We did have to replace the glass panes. Most of them were cracked and damaged. Yeah, that was a very, very difficult process, but we talked to a couple people a few years ago about paying for them to do it, and it wasn't financially worth it. And again, like the house, over 100 years is kind of shimmied a little bit, so the windows just don't fit or work at all.
And to be in agreement with the rest of the committee and the board, our standards. I would prefer to see different type of window on the front. Obviously, I think I would approve vinyl on the sides and the rear. In this case, I would be okay with vinyl on the front.
Thank you, Mr. Sandberg. Other questions and comments from the commission? All right, not seeing any other comments or questions. Would someone like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion with respect to the chairwoman. I think in balance, the value of vinyl to the functionality of you and your house and your family, and the it seems marginal loss of historical appearance from the street. With the vinyl windows, I would move to approve the windows as presented on all elevations of the home. Is that adequate? Okay.
So we have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Mr. Sandberg, for the second. Any further discussion? Okay, not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick? Yes. Mr. Lozier,
No.
Director Mersman,
Yes.
Mr. Sandberg,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trosick? Ray, you're muted if,
I'm sorry. Yeah. Yes.
thank you. And Ms. Trout?
Mr. Strickland? did you get-
Yeah,
Okay, no.
Madam Chair, the motion passes by a vote of 7-2.
All right. You've been approved for replacement, so good luck with your project.
Wonderful. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time. Have a nice day.
Thank you. You too.
Madam Chair, I need to recuse myself from the next two.
All right, thank you.
I'll await my comment though.
Over there. Okay. All right, then we will move on to our next project located at 2604 Garden Avenue Rehabilitation. We'd like to, yes, Ms. Brand, please feel free to unmute your mic and announce yourself and tell us about the project.
Yes, hi, I'm Jill Brandt from Brandt Architecture. We've been working on this project for a number of years, and I believe the board has seen it previously. We had it connected to an adjacent building. It is now a standalone building. If you can go to the next page. It's located on Pearl Road in Old Brooklyn. The owner has renovated as part of a multi-phase project. The owner had renovated the former Masonic Hall to apartments, Lofts on Pearl. That's the building across from Garden Avenue, immediately to the south of this. And we're working on a new construction building immediately to the north. So it'll really bring some vibrancy to the neighborhood. Next page, please. This is the existing building. It had been vacant for many, many years. And you can see it's in a bit of, needs some love. Somewhere along the line, a storefront was replaced with sort of a wood frame and shake shingle structure there. We'll be removing that and restoring the building. You can see that last foot on the bottom right corner is the third floor. It had a beautiful meeting room, ballroom. It's really quite a lovely building. Next page, please. So this shows the overall site and the extent of the different phases of the projects. The Kearns building that we're discussing is in the dark red on the corner of Pearl and Garden. Next page, please. It's just some site work there. We are adding a nice green space behind the building where the dumpsters and parking and junk formerly was. Next page, please. So this is the interior floor plans. And I should also add too that we did receive a SHPO grant for the restoration of this building. We're very excited about that. So they have already approved these drawings as well. So on the far right is the first floor plan. You can see where we'll be removing that old non-historic, I should say, storefront and returning to the original storefront windows and more traditional storefront pattern. We were able through selective demo to find out where there is some existing glass and transoms in place. So we were able to confirm sizes and locations of those items. The first floor will be likely a retail space. We're adding bathrooms and egress stairs. The upper floor, it was formerly offices, and we'll be restoring those. Actually, there might have been, I think they were originally offices and then converted to apartments. So we'll be moving a lot of plumbing fixtures there, but maintaining a lot of the trim and the doors. There's some beautiful doors and transom windows in that hallway, some lovely woodwork. And then on that upper floor, as I had mentioned, was formerly like a meeting hall. We'd love to see that again used as gathering place for community meetings, possibly a reading room. Maybe a single tenant would take the whole space. There's some really lovely details in there. Next page, please. There we go. So here on the elevations, you can see there are two big windows on the front and one on the side that will be repairing any of the damaged woodwork and replacing in kind. We'll be replacing all the windows with fiberglass windows. We'll be using the same style of windows and manufacturer that we used on the Lost on Pearl project, which you previously approved. Any place that specifically on the rear will be infilling some windows due to the stairs and toilet rooms. And we will be setting that brick back an inch just to kind of keep with that historic restoration, so it's clear where those windows were. I think the next page has a little more detail on the storefront. Up there's the windows and the south elevation. That's that other bay that's coming out that needs to be. Some of the woodwork is pretty damaged on that, so we'll be replacing that. Next image, please. There's the detail of the storefront. So yes, as I mentioned, we were able to do some selective demo to get the widths of the windows. Some of those upper transoms are still intact. They're painted over. So we're hoping to be able to reuse them if we can't be replacing them. There is some beadboard on the interior. The storefront steps back to the door entry. So we'll be restoring that or replacing that. Next image, please. This is some general site light, general building lighting. Next page. Again, some site lighting. Following page. Excuse me, next page, please. And again, some landscaping. The landscaping and much of the site work will be completed with the Flats on Pearl project, but I wanted to include it just for point of reference for you. Next page, please. And then this is just a rendered image of the front of the building again. I think that's it. So that's showing it just in conjunction with that new Flats on Pearl project that has been approved. Oh, there's some detailed sheets of the beadboard and the materials that were requested. So that's all I have.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Before we get to the commission's discussion, I'd like to hear Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The This was seen by the Greater Cuyahoga Valley Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on May 20th, and they recommended the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness with the recommendation to insert inset the display windows. They just wanted to ensure that the windows themselves were set back from the masonry face a little bit, which I believe is the case.
Excellent. Okay, thank you. And then Landmark's staff recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So as our applicant noted, this is part of a larger grouping of projects, some of which were approved a few years ago or more recently or still in that review process. The Flats on Pearl, Row on Garden, Lofts on Pearl that was shown. And so with staff, we'd like to see other color opportunities. I understand it's kind of fitting in with the new Flats on Pearl, but the wood bays have a lot of opportunities to have some more interest other than the proposed gray, that we'd just like to see if that was explored at all. And would just like to have kind of more the drawings that show that bay on the side of the building clearly identified, because right now it was just a kind of flat, didn't have any windows on it, which it does. And just want to note the other reviews that would be needed with the permitting and all of the different projects working in conjunction as the kind of project moves forward through the city process.
Great, thank you for that summary. Then we'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Who'd like to start us off? I guess I'll begin. Oh, Ms. Anderson, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is really exciting to see this building come into to use again, and there's a lot of thoughtful improvements here. Even though this is outside of our jurisdiction, I'm happy to see that you are maintaining woodwork and the wood trim and a lot of the nice features that are original to the building. I'm happy to see the storefront opened up and the transoms restored. My deep concern is the gray of the wood trim. It's not an appropriate color for the building and the era. I think the wood trim is something that should be accentuated. And I'm not saying to put, a bright or, a real, contrasting color, but something that will enhance the respect to the brick and just an appropriate color for the period, and definitely not gray. But otherwise, I'm very pleased to see this come along. Thank you.
Ms. Anderson. Before we move to the next question or comments, would the applicant like to respond? Have you explored other colors for the wood trim besides the gray?
Probably very, very early on in the project. Again, I think it was trying to be cohesive with the Flats on Pearl project. Can we move the presentation towards the beginning? I think there were some existing photos, please. There we go. So someone was asking about I think the bottom left-hand corner shows the side bay, and the upper right-hand corner, you can see both bays. I thought the gray did pick up on some of the stone in the building. I guess my question, and perhaps Mike, I'm sorry, I know you recused yourself, so I don't know if you're able to still comment, but because SHPO has already approved this with the colors, are we allowed to change the colors at this point?
Colors are typically referred as something that's reversible or changeable. So, yeah, I don't think SHPO would have a problem with us changing the colors.
Okay. Yes, and we can look for a color that is perhaps more similar to the stone lintel in there.
Yeah, that would be great if it was something similar to the original stone lintel, and not the, pollution darkened.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. We'll then move on to Mr. Strickland.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I first want to commend the applicant for continuing this significant investment in this neighborhood. We've seen, all the projects that he's successfully restored and continues to plan for further improvements. And I just really commend the applicant, the owner, for his commitment to this neighborhood. I also agree with the comments about changing the color on the bays. And I think that matching the restored limestone color would be appropriate. So I agree with staff on that recommendation. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Mr. Strickland. Mr. Dulick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I definitely concur with both Mr. Strickland and Ms. Anderson's comments about the color. I want to also add my commendation to the applicant for thinking in terms of almost a mini district and thinking about these buildings together. That being said, I think that the kind of inherent variety and scale that I think can feel even better by the implementation of historically appropriate colors as suggested by Ms. Anderson and also suggested by Mr. Strickland is important. If we may, please look at the slide with the proposed exterior lighting. I didn't see it on the other elevations. And I think both the sort of style of the lighting, I know it's clearly modern, but I guess I want to hear more about what's driving that and the necessity of it, because it does seem a little alien to the building to me, and even kind of the lightscape of what a district like this always would have been. So through the chair to the applicant, just hear more about what's driving the lighting in general, but then also the specific selection of this design.
Thank you. Yes, so first and foremost, this light fixture is used on the lofts and Pearl on the flats. And we thought it was important to have some consistency with it. And I believe, I don't know if the next slide shows the side elevation. No, it doesn't, I'm sorry. I believe on the side, we have that lighting near the top of the first floor, so it's very consistent as you come around the corner with the lofts on Pearl, and when we have lighting on flats. So it was part of that, and again, we still have some similar lighting on lofts and what we'll do on flats, accentuating those vertical brick elements on those two buildings. So again, it was to be part of a cohesive look for that. I think the other one on this one, we did drop the lights lower. And it just that we have a signage band there. There's not a lot of height difference between, there's a stone lintel under the second floor windows. And then we have this, well, that's where we're assuming signage will go between that and our top of our transom. So there wasn't a lot of room for lighting there. So we felt that this was, again, cohesive and the best way to accentuate the building. We can look at, if they come in different colors, that would be a little softer, or I'm not sure. But yeah, I think we felt that, again, trying to present this with the other two projects, that this was why we chose this.
Okay, thank you. That's very helpful. I guess I want to get back to my original notion of thinking of this as a district and that balance between consistency and variety. I can understand from a development perspective the drive for consistency, but I think the nature of the character of this particular, I'll call it a sub-district of this portion of Old Brooklyn, the variety is part of that character. I think it's the thinking and I think actual notions about driving the different paint colors really, I think, spill over into thinking about the lighting. I think the desire for the consistency and the harmony with the building to the north, the lofts on Pearl that we've, I think the lighting for that and what that building is becoming is a clearly different building is appropriate. I think taking that notion on to the historic building is not. So it's hard to say without seeing some kind of rendering or representation of how the lighting on this building does or doesn't work with the lighting on the building.
Okay.
Yes.
You can probably put together a rendering or something to that effect.
Yeah, I think that would be something that I'd certainly be comfortable with having staff review. A suggestion is that whether the lighting is even necessary, and if it is, I think the design. So thank you very much.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you quite correctly. Did you say you question if the lighting on the building is even necessary?
Yeah, I think for some reason, my microphone just died.
Oh.
I hope that's better. Yeah, I think that seen in the context of all the other buildings that are part of this ensemble of buildings, I'd like to see how it looks without it in terms of supporting that kind of subtle variety of the character of the district from a historic perspective. Thank you.
I think if we could just put, lightings, at that recess of the vestibule at our storefront entry, and then on the exit doors, that might be preferred.
Yes, I think so.
Here you can see the verticality of the other two buildings and why we chose to do that lighting to match. But I think to your point that it can be consistent without being matchy. So I think if we omitted those upper story down lights, that might be the best solution.
Thank you. Just for clarity, I mean, are you open to taking those lights out?
Yes.
Good. Thank you. Couldn't have said it better. Appreciate it.
All right, I think I'll just conclude. I mean, I'm a little bit in contrast to your comments about the lights. I don't disagree about the style, but I think if we were trying to create that cohesive look, the lighting in the evening across all three buildings to me would make it feel unified. I do agree, maybe they don't all have to be in the same line so that you do get that variety like in the evening, like you do in the daytime when you can see the three distinct architectural styles. So I think it's, exploring the locations and supplying a rendering that shows them with the lights and without would be helpful to make that final decision. But I think it can be, I trust staff to make that, final decision. And I also am aligned with the comments of the color. I think between the use of your brick, between the new building and the renovated building, and all the work of consistency of colors of windows, I think you can provide and enhance the personality of this building as its own element with additional different colors, like using something similar to the sandstone on the building or whatever you feel is appropriate. But overall, I'm in support of this project as presented with those two recommendations.
Thank you.
Any other questions and comments, or would someone like to make a motion? Would someone like to put forward a motion? Mr. Strickland, thank you. It's hard to see over there in the corner.
Okay. Thank you, Madam Chair. I would move to approve the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness for the plans as presented, with the recommendation that the color of the bays be studied and presented to staff for final approval, along with creation of a rendering and consideration of an adjustment, either elimination or changing the fixture type or location to provide exterior lighting.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Strickland, for the motion. Do we have a second?
I will second.
Thank you, Mr. Dulick, for the second. Any further discussion?
I have one question I forgot to ask.
Sure. Go ahead, Ms. Anderson.
It's regarding the wrought iron trim. I see it elevation above the bay window, but there's some wrought iron trim between the two bay windows, and I was wondering if that was going to be.
I'm sorry, I couldn't quite hear the question. It sounded like you were asking about this.
My fault. I forgot to turn this thing on. Regarding the wrought iron trim over the bay, it looks like that's in the rendering, but there's some wrought iron trim below that's between the two bay windows, and I was just wondering if that's going to be retained and restored.
If you want to go back to the original photo, I don't know if you can zoom in on that, but that's what we have existing and that's what we're matching. We're restoring.
Thank you.
Excellent. All right. Any further discussion? Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I guess my question to the first and the second is changing it from a recommendation to a requirement to provide, to study the coloration and the lighting.
Mr. Strickland, are you open to that revision to your motion?
Yeah, I would agree with that for
right,
staff approval. No need to come back to the commission.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Strickland. Mr. Dulick?
Yes, Madam Chair.
Great. So we have the revision to the motion from a recommendation to requirements. Any further discussion? Austin, please call roll.
All right, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer, Ellen,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mersman,
Yes.
Mr. Sambry. Oh, recused. Yep, thank you. Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Congratulations. We look forward to seeing your project move forward.
Great, thank you. We're looking forward to it as well.
Thank you. We'll then move on to our next applicant located at 1523 East 55th Street, Historic Eleanor B. Rainey Memorial Institute Building, rehabilitation and addition. Sorry, I couldn't spit that out. Is that the right one?
Steve is here.
Hello, everyone. Sorry, I guess it doesn't seem like the camera's coming on. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so we have, since our last meeting, we went back to the local design review. We believe we've addressed both comments from the local committee and the Landmarks Commission. We can go through the kind of beginning slides pretty quickly. Most of the comments were related to the addition, so we really haven't made any adjustments to the historic building since everybody was happy with that. The one item to note would be when you get to the site plan, which is maybe just another slide or two. So we did eliminate the existing driveway that kind of comes out between this building and the adjacent property. It's really a very narrow driveway and, really kind of a, can't see around the corner of the neighbor's building at the sidewalk. So we were able to eliminate that existing driveway. So we only have the parking curb cut behind the building. So really that's the only change that's occurred in the front portion of the project. Then again, the plans everybody seems happy with before, so no revisions to the floor plans. So you can start to see on the, we have the 2D colored elevations and then we have the renderings at the end. But you can see we did add a brick base at the addition. We thought that was a really good suggestion and really kind of extends that, the masonry base from the existing building. Gives it that kind of, top, middle, and bottom proportions to the addition. We also, you can see in this elevation that we added a small awning over the addition entrance. The other thing is we changed the upper floor of the addition to horizontal siding, which you can see in the kind of left elevation here. It matches the horizontal siding that's at the rear second floor of the existing building. Next slide. Next slide. And this view is pretty much the same as before, as is the corner view. And then here you can see the proposed changes. So we kept with the, these were the options we presented at the last meeting, just for reference, as where we started and where we are today. I think the next slide's the last one, and this is what we're proposing for the addition. We did keep the 2 middle floors combined. We felt that was appropriate to kind of keep with the proportions of the existing building being just a like a 2.5 story historic building. We don't want to break that up into like 4 separate pieces on the addition. You're open to questions.
All right, thank you for the presentation. First, we'll go to Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project was reviewed by the Greater Northeast Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on May 21st. The committee discussed their proportions, the colors. They did recommend studying the exterior corners, just as it could read as corner boards, and we're happy with the modifications that were made from the concept or schematic review. And so they did recommend the issuance of certificate of appropriateness as presented.
Excellent, thank you. And then Landmark staff recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project is going to be the recipient of a Historic Equal Rights National Park Service grant. So I believe the National Park Service has had eyes on this as well. Staff recommends approval or issuance of the certificate of appropriateness. I think the design solution for that rear addition looks appropriate. It definitely distinguishes itself from new, but relates to the historic building nicely.
Excellent, thank you. Then we'll open up the floor of the commission for questions and comments. Who'd like to start us off? I guess I will start. I commend you. I think we talked about this before, of your sensitivity of the addition. I think it's very, modestly developed. It's appropriate, setback, relates, but distinguishable. So I'm in full support of the proposal. Mr. Dulick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I definitely second that idea. This is really sensitively done. Thank you for exploring the options, but I think that the proportions, the use of the brick base, and the kind of lightening of that top are going to be really, really handsome and appropriate. I do have a question, and it wouldn't be a requirement or anything, but if we could look at the east elevation, that really does kind of face the parking lot. And if you're actually in the parking lot and coming to the building, that's what you'd be seeing. Since this is that modern addition, although I think very appropriate modern addition. This is a thought. I'm wondering about the equivalence of the fenestration of the windows on the street facade, which looks great. and on the north facade as well, because one's the elevator lobby and one's the stairs. The thought would be, is there a way to give this a little bit more of an engagement from, that's where the stair landings are, or whatever, if that had the windows there, and then maybe windows on the landing at the other facade? It's just to explore it, because it almost looks like the same thing is going on the north. I think the north's less visible. So that's sort of, I'm agnostic about that, I guess. But the idea of some element of fenestration on that east elevation of this nicely proportioned tower to give it a little bit of connection to people as they approach from the parking lot. That's just a recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Julick. Other questions and comments, Ms. Anderson? Oh,
Yeah, I
I'm
guess
sorry.
If I could
go
just
ahead.
reply to the windows. So we did put the fenestration adjacent to the historic building to kind of provide that separation between the, solid portion of the addition and the existing building. And then I believe on the east side, we are proposing some landscaping so it's not, just a completely solid wall that's not, screened by some landscaping. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jennings. I'm sorry, Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate your light touch with this basically restoration of this building. It sorely needs it. Couple questions. Are you stuck with that gas company utility box? No. Okay.
Yeah. Unfortunately, yes.
Okay. Yeah, it's a pretty big piece of equipment, so but I guess it is what it is. And I guess in sympathy with your comments is I think it'd be nice to break that up somewhat, and I feel kind of sad. There's a very charming overhang for a rear door that's going to be eliminated. I don't know if there's somewhere you can incorporate that or if it's just gone, but just sorry to see it being lost. But overall, I'm very supportive of the project. I think it's a very nice job.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Other questions or comments, or is the hearing fairly, go ahead, Ms. Mearson.
Thank you. Steve or Michael, could you remind us the anticipated use of the building, if you know?
Go ahead, Steve.
And I think Willie's on also if he wants to elaborate, but the general idea is that it's a co-working space for the kind of local neighborhood. So there's different types of, what you would find in a co-working space, obviously, like, desk type space, conference rooms. There's a, mailing center, a small, cafe type of, to-go coffee shop. And then even some like recording type rooms for podcasting. So really a full variety of things that could support, startup businesses in the neighborhood.
Great, thank you. Jessica, do we have a slide that shows the front sort of landscaping plan or site in front of the space? So with the area to the north or the left of the page, is that intended to, it looks like it's sort of used as parking today. But what is the intended use of that paved area?
So when you walk inside the front entrance here to the left would be that cafe type space.
Okay, so patio?
Yeah, so this kind of both on the porch and the patio would be some, area for tables and patio space for that cafe use.
Okay, thank you. I would recommend adding some bike racks somewhere in your site. probably in this area along East 55th Street. This is really close to Superior where the Midway is coming in. And we're also working on some bicycle connections along East 55th Street connecting to the lake and then south to Slavic Village. So I think in the next couple of years, our capital investments in the right of way are really going to knit together the bike network. And this seems like a great use and location for folks to be able to bike ride in, grab coffee, do their meeting or podcast recording.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you for that recommendation. Hearing fairly unanimous support for the project, would someone like to make a motion?
Madam Chair.
Mr. Dulick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented with a requirement for the inclusion of bike racks and a recommendation that additional fenestration be studied for the east elevation and potential revisions to the north with staff review.
All right, thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Okay, Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dryer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mertzman,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trosick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trott.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously with Mr. Sambury recusing himself again.
All right, congratulations. We look forward to seeing your project progress.
Thank you.
We'll then move on to our next applicant located 1313 West 6th Street, patio enclosure. Good morning.
Morning. So how far into the whole presentation again? You want me to do the whole? I'm not sure what you guys
Since
is
you were here
appropriate.
fairly recently, probably highlighting what has changed since the
Okay.
last, one, would be good.
Okay, so thank you. Yeah, I think based on our last meeting with the commission, I think there was a support for the project. And I think there was just a request for more information and a response to some comments. So we can go through there. I included some renderings and then I also altered the patina of the enclosure itself. So some of the inspiration photos again. So, some of these additional renderings you're going to see here bring into the rendering the tree that's in front of the building, which was requested before. And then this obviously shows a frontal rendering of the building itself with the new canopy attached to it. And then next photo, same thing, I think we provided this one before. We added the tree and then you can start to see in this one here, we toned down the patina, the brighter green patina of the overall enclosure and made it a little darker. And then in this one, you can see we also added vegetation. So we anticipate having vines and some flowering plants climb up in this trellis to densify it a bit and to add a little bit more ornamentation to it. Let's see what else. Try the next one. And same thing here. This is another view from the opposite direction. You can see the Aqua de Dea canopy included in this one as well. So for scale purposes, we just gave you this additional visual and there could be another one. I think that's it.
Do you have a sample or have you submitted a sample of the color to staff? Okay, that will be a requirement so that
Okay.
we understand that the true color of it.
Sure.
We appreciate renderings are great, but we
Okay.
know how they can not always represent the true colors.
No problem.
So before we move on, just a comment.
Okay, yep.
Thank you. All right, then if that concludes your presentation, we'll move on to the Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This was seen by the Greater Downtown Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on June 4th. I would say that the committee was all in agreement that it's beautiful, but there was a little less agreement as to whether it was appropriate or not. There was, some feelings that given the character of the street and the uniqueness of the proposed storefront, that it was, that it was appropriate, that it created a unique and interesting dialogue with the historic building and that it didn't overwhelm the building. And then there were others that felt that, this is one of the nicest storefronts in the district and something more neutral would be appropriate. And that it obscured too much of the detail of the building itself. But ultimately, a motion was passed by a vote of 4-2 to recommend the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness with the condition that the applicant provided attachment details to ensure reversibility and that there's no water penetration, which Mr. Badgeko has submitted that to staff.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. And then staff recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this project was reviewed April 25th schematically, and so we've come back and seen the changes. It's a very attractive design, and staff, like we've discussed it at length. We have similar concerns and discussion that the committee has, and kind of narrowed it down that with this design, we struggle in particular with the appropriateness of the arches, in that it's a very angular building. That building, there's arches on the building next door, but that particular building is very angular. And the arches part of the awning patio system seems incongruous to the building in the district. But overall, it's very attractive, like the color that was chosen, and just struggle with the arches aspect of it.
Thank you for that feedback. Then we will open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. From the commit, who'd like to start us off? Mr. Strickland?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would just like the applicant to respond or react to the comments from Landmark staff with regard to consideration of the arches.
Yeah, sure. I'd be happy to. I think, obviously we're trying to create a specific character for our French restaurant, which is the driving force behind the arches. And actually, I did listen to the previous meeting that we held here. And one of the comments was the style should complement but be clearly modern and differentiate itself aesthetically from the historic elements of the building, which I think we are specifically doing in this case.
All right. Thank you for that explanation. Thank you.
Other questions, Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm reasonably comfortable with the arches. I realize that building does not have that kind of an element, but it is something that's seen in that district. And I also think that this is distinctive, and it tells the people on the street what it is. It's a French bistro, and it looks like a French bistro. So I'm comfortable with this. Those are my.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. Other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Lozier?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to thank the applicant for taking a look at the coloration of the structure itself. I think deepening the color does help it maybe recede a little bit more into the fabric of the storefront. And also seeing the tree in place, I think also helps to put it better into the context of the streetscape. And I'm in agreement with Ms. Anderson. I don't mind the arches. I think arches are something that are part of the overall fabric of the district, though maybe not on this particular building. I'm also comfortable with this design in that this is not a permanent structure that can be removed in the future, depending on ultimately kind of the future of this storefront as it continues through time. So I'm comfortable with what's being presented today, and thank you again to the applicant.
Thank you, Mr. Lozier. I guess I'll make my comments next. I'm fairly comfortable with the design. I do appreciate and can relate to what staff is saying, but related to the arches, but I don't object to them. I think the only thing I continue to struggle with a little bit is the color.
Mhm.
So that's where the color is key. To me, the deeper, the better,
Mhm.
because it right now, since it is the storefront currently is painted that bright green. Is that your intentions to maintain it?
Yes. Yeah.
To me, it pushes because of the brighter color, and it still comes to the foreground where if it was darker, then it really does allow you to create that atmosphere that you're looking for, but let the building still shine behind it.
Okay.
So my personal opinion is that the darker the color, the better. If it's green, then finding that correct green that goes with what you're trying to create, but doesn't take away from the building, or even a bronze color that allows you to appreciate the greenery on this that you're going to put on it versus the design itself. I think that's where, I appreciate seeing it, your intentions to allow the plants grow up it, but because the color is so similar to what, those vines may be, you may not pick up on it. So that's my personal opinion, is that I'm comfortable with the design since it is removable, but my personal opinion is I'd still like to see it, a darker color, to be determined by staff and approved by staff.
Okay, no problem. I appreciate it.
So, other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Samberry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think this is a really handsome design. I like it. I don't think it's appropriate in this neighborhood. I just don't feel like it's historically appropriate for this neighborhood. I understand there's arches in the neighborhood. There's none on this building. Just not in favor of this design. But I do think it's a great design for some other location. My personal preference.
Thank you, Mr. Samberry. Other questions and comments from the commission? Not seeing any. Would someone like to make a motion? Anderson? You see, was that a motion or not? I see.
Yes, so. Okay, I move to approve as presented with the stipulation that we darken the green, darken the color, and that can be approved by staff.
Okay. Is that your motion with that one condition? One condition?
Yes.
Okay. So we have a motion. Do we have a second? Mr. Lozier?
I'll second.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Lozier. Any further discussion? I guess I realized I forgot to ask one question, so I'll ask it. And I believe you, responded to us last time, but if you could remind me, the distance between the tree enclosure and this enclosure, what is that distance?
The walkway surface is, I think is dimension on there, isn't it right? Is that what you're asking about, the pathway?
Correct.
I think is that 310 or 4 foot? I can't read that. On the right side?
310.
310, yeah. Plus a 6-inch rolled curb, which is exactly as it is in Aqua right below that. And then it's 6 foot on the curb side.
Yeah, this is one of those unique areas in the city where the right of way, like the pedestrian pathway, is closer to the street.
Got it.
And then they flipped that a few years ago to allow more patios throughout the warehouse district.
Got it. Thank you. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that.
Want us to make it bigger, like for a bigger patio? Is that what you're saying?
Matching is better. I think
Okay.
this is good. As long as somebody can circulate through there.
Yes,
good.
they can.
All right. Any additional questions?
Are there any additional, like, reversibility or something that we should put into the motion?
So they have submitted, as recommended by the or required by the recommended approval by the local design review committee. They submitted the attachment details that show that, I think staff has a fair level of comfort that it would be reversible. There'd have to be some cleanup, patching of holes, that sort of thing, but
Right.
yeah, I think that's already been taken care of.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson. All right, not seeing any additional questions or comments. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Ms. Anderson?
Yes.
Mr. Dryer?
Yes.
Mr. Dulick?
Yes.
Mr. Lozier?
Yes.
Director Mersman?
Yes.
Mr. Sambry?
No.
Mr. Strickland?
Yes.
Mr. Trasick?
Yes.
And Ms. Trot?
Yes.
Madam Chair, the vote passes the motion passes by a vote of 8-1.
All right, congratulations. We look
Great.
forward to seeing your project move forward.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll then move on to our next applicant located at 6709 Euclid Avenue, Dunham Tavern Visitor Center, new construction. Are you here for Dunham Tavern?
I am.
All right, feel free to take a seat. Is anyone joining you today or just yourself?
I hope that our architect would, but I think we screwed up the link somehow, so he's working on it, but I think we're okay.
Okay. Then please tell us on your name and tell us about your project.
My name is Tom Zarfas. I'm a landscape architect at Benke Landscape Architecture. I'm also on the board at Dunham Tavern. And after 201 years, we're going to get a visitor center, I think. So I'll start. I think pretty familiar with where Dunham is and the Cleveland context. If you could go to the next slide. I think the easiest way to tell people where it is now is we're next to the Cleveland Foundation. I think their new headquarters is actually on what at one time was our property. Next slide. You can see the Cleveland Foundation on the left. Dunham Tavern is under that big white label. The visitor center is where that asterisk is, which is actually an open plot of grass just on the east side of our entry drive. This construction does not involve the removal of any trees. Any that might have been an issue were removed by the tornado a couple of years ago. Next slide. The top slide, you're a little bit to the west of the tavern, and looking just to the right of the tavern, you can see that open piece of lawn, and that's our building site. And then moving a little bit down to the east and looking back toward the tavern, you can see we've got some pretty hefty vegetation along that front edge. So this visitor center is not going to be a highly visible structure from Euclid Avenue, which is fine with us because it's essentially an outbuilding. The tavern is our feature, and we're not trying to compete with that. Next slide. It's an overall site plan. The visitor center is being funded by a generous donation by one of our board members and some support from the Cleveland Foundation. The site work is being funded primarily by a green infrastructure grant from Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District. This is our second grant. Our first one was the area in front of our barn, which is just off the top of the site plan here. The hatched area are permeable pavers, and all the runoff from the visitor center, the driveway, and most of the runoff from the actually from the tavern is now going to be picked up in those permeable paver fields. Next slide. Floor plan. This is a pretty simple structure. The upper left is the easiest one to sort of see what's going on. The right side or east side of the building has a restroom, storage area, small office, and the obligatory gift shop. What can I say? The rest of the space is windowless because we're almost treating this a little like a black box. We want this space for exhibit space. We don't want to cover up the floor with a bunch of antique furniture. That's not our objective here. The west wall is to be a video wall. The north and south walls will be display walls. The center area we want to be flexible so we can put seating in it to watch videos. We could even have our own board meetings in there. Going to put a little bit of technology in there, which we don't have anywhere else. So it's a pretty simple structure. Next slide. It's got a porch on three sides. On the side toward the tavern, there are windows. They're actually faux windows with shutters, solid shutters. And it's a pretty simple structure. As I said, it's basically, we look at it as like an outbuilding. Historically, at one time on this, what is now a 4-acre site, it was a little larger before we sold some of the property. There were over 100 small residences on this site that were potentially blue-collar workers that worked not far away because they didn't have cars, obviously. So this is sort of a reminiscent of that era. Next slide. I don't think you care too much about this, but it essentially shows the electrical, mechanical. In terms of exterior lighting, the porch has ceiling lights all the way around. So that'll give us some security lighting as well as just, for any kind of activity we're doing. Our long-term plan includes a site lighting master plan, which we haven't done yet, among many things we haven't been able to do yet. But at this point, we're just putting that lighting on the porch. Next. Materials, you can see the landscape is pretty simple. One of the biggest problems facilities like us have is maintenance, so we try not to get crazy with plant material. We want to be able to take care of what we do. We will have some site furniture. You can see the right above where there's a sign, there's some paving material. That's the pavers we used in phase 1 of the Green Infrastructure Grant. It'll be the same materials in this phase 2. You can see the color we're thinking about for the visitor center, the roof. There'll be a sign on the south side and the north side. It's a small sign, 10 by 30, with the name of the donor. It will be eye level height next to the doors on each side. And you can see the shutters, although they're open in that picture. And we'll be adding some site furniture. Next, that might be the last slide. Oh, there's a landscape plan. Yeah, as you can see, it's pretty basic. Next. That's it. Any questions?
Thank you for the presentation. Before we get to our questions, we'll hear the Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. This came before the Greater Northeast Historic Design Review Advisory Committee on May 20th. There's good discussion. It was tabled to allow the applicant to come back with some changes to the fenestration on the west elevation. Essentially, it was kind of shown as a blank elevation at that point, they wanted at least some reference to windows. So the project came back on June 3rd and was unanimously voted to recommend the issuance of a certificate of appropriateness.
All right, excellent. And then landmark staff recommendation.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This project fits in with the Dunham Tavern Master Plan that was reviewed in 2021, where the visitor center is in the same general location and size and scale as was previously sent. And we did meet with the applicants prior to them submitting to kind of talk over their plans for the site and how it fits in. So we are happy to see that it's moving forward. I'm excited for the tavern to get a visitor center.
Excellent. Thank you. Then we'll open up the floor to the commission for questions and comments. Would you like to start us off? I guess I will start. It's exciting to see this move forward. It's such a great asset that's been so hidden for so many years. It's nice. And you host so many school groups already that it'll be nice to have a space to host them outside of just the the tavern house themselves. So really have no comments beyond what you've already done of incorporation of the windows. So I'm in full support of the presentation.
Thank you.
Other questions and comments from the commission? There's no comments, then would someone like to make a motion? We don't have to belabor.
Chair, I'll make a motion to approve as as presented.
We have a motion on the table. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Mersman. We have a motion. We have a second. Any further discussion? Not seeing any. Mr. Musson, please call roll.
Seems like a straightforward one. Ms. Anderson,
Yes.
Mr. Dreyer,
Yes.
Mr. Dulick,
Yes.
Mr. Lozier,
Yes.
Director Mersman,
Yes.
Mr. Sandberg,
Yes.
Mr. Strickland,
Yes.
Mr. Trasick,
Yes.
and Ms. Trot.
Yes.
Madam Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
All right. Congratulations. You didn't even need your architect. So great job.
Thank you, and thank you, Daniel, and thank you, Jessica, for all your help.
Thank you. We look forward to seeing you move forward. That concludes our certificate of appropriateness for today. We'll then move on to schematic plan review. Invite the applicants to come forward. The case is located at 6107 Ellen Avenue, new construction.
Good morning. I'm Graydon Petznick, architect for Jim and Stacy. Jim Todd here, one of the owners. And we have a new build on one of 4 vacant lots on Ellen Avenue. Just south of Borden Square. We have been working with pre-development reviews with planning and landscape or landmarks over the last 9 months, and we just had our first design review last month. Next slide, please. Just to show where this lot is and the 2 vacant lots to the left, the 1 vacant lot to the right. Ellen Avenue has a pretty rich variety of building types and ages between 58th and 65th Street. Next slide, please. Ranging from late Victorian single family to more ornate early 20th century and including some row houses. Lot sizes vary in width from, I think I measured 24 up to over 45. The top 2 pictures are the 4 contiguous vacant lots on Ellen. We are in the top left picture. We are the second from last lot before the white 2-story house. Next slide, please. The lot itself is small by city standards. It's 45 by 70. Next slide, please. But we've been working with the owners to design what was a prototype, but is now very specific to this lot for a 2-story, 3-bedroom house that meets the city's aging in place criteria, as well as enterprise green communities. So with this lot being as small as it is and the affordability and marketability, we've come up with a 1,675 square foot house that meets that criteria. Seems to work with the lot with only 2 minor variances anticipated. One is the rear setback and one is the FAR. I think we're 100 feet over half the lot size of the smaller lot. So we're doing pretty well, but those are our 2 anticipated variances. We did work with the existing context to determine the front setback, which is about 12.5 feet. But important to the clients was a livable front porch on to address the rest of the street and the sidewalk in front of it. Next slide, please. we've come up with many different representations of the house, but after reviewing the neighborhood in previous conversations, the two things that became our design criteria was really creating a mass that worked with the rest of the street in the context of the neighborhood, without relying specifically on historic ornament, but rather using scale of the details that we would use in terms of basic trim bands, basic fascia, muntin patterns in a new building. And this is the result. We do have a small hood type garage in the back. But next slide. We've looked at the basic materials that are shown within this perspective. Seem to go over pretty well, and the reception seems pretty nice to it, except for some of the materials we can talk about. Next slide. This shows basically the existing context in the immediate vicinity, plus some of those massing alterations we had looked at early on, but filled into the rest of the lots on the street. The house on the immediate right is a double lot with a very recessed two-car garage, but the rest of the mass seems to work with the existing context on the street going through. Next slide, please. Starting to work with civil so we've done some slab plans to approach the aging in place question. This is a slab on grade house to meet the accessibility requirements. So we are lower to the ground than many other houses. Been looking at the massing and the roof plan as well. Next slide. Just more detailed for pricing on the first floor, open great room, living room, kitchen, utility, a fully accessible bath, and a first floor bedroom with 2 bedrooms, a bath, and a flexible space at the right of the plan that could be anywhere from a master bedroom, a second bedroom, or a playroom or den. Next slide, please. The measured elevations for the perspective, we had some questions about sizes of columns and trim, and this is probably a more reliable document to evaluate those things. Next slide. We are trying to make this as nice as possible within a very tight budget, but we are using 9-foot ceilings on the first floor for the living spaces in the master bedroom, and relying on 8-foot pre-cut studs for the second floor, and manufactured light gauge trusses with the slab on grade. I believe that's the conclusion, unless I forgot. Oh, the hood garage at the back. Sorry, that is, it's an enlarged, really a car and a half, but it's sized more for the accessibility and the access to the back door, which is no threshold. But the more traditional hood garage, certainly, we don't need the eaves and the encroachment onto what's a very tight setback to the property lines, and is a nice nod to the rest of the neighborhood's garages. So I believe now that should be the last slide, but happy to answer any questions after you discuss the comments.
All right, thank you. Thank you for the presentation. Then we'll move on to Design Review Advisory Committee recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This went before the Historic West Cleveland Design Review Advisory Committee on May 21st, schematically, so there's no action taken. I would say in general, the committee was excited and happy to see such an appropriately scaled and styled building, especially on these challenging small lots. These ones have been vacant for quite some time, so I think the general feeling is that they're happy to see something so nice going in, and the aging in place is important to the neighborhood as well. Just to, I guess, mention a few things that came up in discussion. They did want to see a little beefier trim around the windows. They recommend like 5.5 inch. Thought that they should, study the front door. Just, that it might feel a little too suburban the way it's shown in the renderings. There's discussion about vinyl siding and, whether some or all of the siding on the house could be hardy. There was some discussion about the potential for adding porch railings and whether that would make it tie into the neighborhood more. I mean, it's low enough that porch railings certainly wouldn't be required by code. But yeah, it was a discussion, and then there was wanted them to study the weight of the columns too, like if they were a little too beefy. But those I think are all details that we'd expect to have worked out by the time we see this for final.
All right, thank you. And then Landmark staff recommendations.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've worked with the owner and his team quite a bit over the past few months, and so we're very excited to see it moving forward and just appreciative of all the work that you've done to fit in with the neighborhood to make this lot fit for what your needs are and how it works in the district. The massing and scale fit great with the street and with the aging in place that you're aiming to do. And we do look forward to seeing it develop to come for final. And also note that the project has support from Councilmember Spencer. She's very excited to see this develop, and also the use of aging in place construction she's very happy about as well. So just also have full support from council.
Excellent, thank you. All right, then we'll open up the floor of the commission for questions and comments.
I have a couple of questions first about the general context of the project on the block. Are you guys working with the people who will be living here, or are you building it and then it will go for sale?
It's a developer spec house.
Okay.
It originally started as a prototype for all 4 lots. But Jim and Stacy only control one of those lots.
Okay.
So this is a very specific spec house.
Great. That was going to be my next question, is what about the other 3 lots? And theoretically, it could be adapted, and
yes,
for other lots, should you gain control of them?
We certainly started that way, but I believe those other lots are for sale.
Yeah, so that's how we started. We wanted to build 4 age-in-place homes, and so one of the lots is a land bank lot. It's to the immediate west, and then we started with a partner, and then, he wasn't interested in age and place and this and that. So, so we have 1 lot for sale. He took 1 lot, and then my wife and I were like designing a home that, again, like if we want to move in and live there, this is going to be, conducive for us, So we went from starting out like, hey, let's do a prototype. And idea is to do a prototype that could be built like anywhere in the city on any city lot. So affordable, like try to make a affordable house, and that's age in place. And so so right now we're concentrating on our house, and then we have 1 lot for sale. So, it's not to say that if that lot doesn't sell, we try to buy it, our ex-partner out and build another house there. But, we'll see. And then I'm not sure with the city land bank lot, what they would propose or what they would.
Thank you for that information. I think we hear a lot from folks that are very interested in staying in the city and in their neighborhoods, but the historic housing stock is a real barrier to folks who are aging and want to stay. So I really appreciate your work to make a design that can work in many places and can work for people who are very invested in the area, and provide more opportunities for them to continue to stay and be part of that community. In terms of the design, I have just 2 questions. I guess I would echo some of the comments about the porch. I know the porch already, by virtue of being lower, is a little bit different than the porches of the neighboring homes that I think have 4 or 5 stairs leading up to them, which seems like a fine concession for the age-friendly aspect of it. But I do think some railings and maybe adjustment to the columns could just make it feel a little bit more consistent. I do wonder about the positioning of the garage, and if you looked in your design about tucking it behind the house and potentially even attaching it?
If you see, it's very faint, but if you see the circles, the arcs
Mhm.
that are at the back, that kind of revolve around the back door and
Yep.
the back window of the bay, zoning in Cleveland has certain restrictions on how close a garage can be to open windows and doors.
Okay.
Back to the 50s and cars and open windows, but that's really the only position that maintains the best backyard we can get. And
Okay.
can get the car, the required parking space, which we prefer to have as garage.
Mhm. Mhm.
But we did look at that. We are trying to maintain some, it's such a shallow lot.
Right.
That we are trying to give the best backyard as possible.
Right.
And the hood garage came into play to try to maximize that and get it as close to the property line as possible.
Okay. Thank you.
If I could address some of the porch comments, we do some other housing in the city for land bank and all, and we've worked with planning on trying to maintain a closer connection to the street and the sidewalk in neighborhoods. And while we don't have 5 steps up on a lot of those houses, we do try to do 2 steps to not have rails on porches to create that connection to the pedestrians. And this is such a tight street that even with a 6-foot porch, we're only 6 feet away from the sidewalk. So we've kind of looked at that both ways. We're not required by code, but we think we've got some scale items in the detailing of the simple detailing of the column and the muntins in the front door and windows that address the scale that porch rail would bring to the design. We certainly don't want to add ornament just to add ornament, but
Yeah.
you know, if there was a requirement of the potential owner to want that as a drinks rail that was 24 inches off the ground,
Mhm.
we'd certainly be open to that and could add that as a custom piece.
Okay, my 2 cents as someone who enjoys sitting on a front porch is that the railing can sort of be a nice
The footrest,
enclosure feeling as well, especially I would think for a porch area that is closer to the sidewalk in terms of elevation and also setback. You know, when I'm on my porch, I don't feel like that railing necessarily is an impermeable separation with folks on the sidewalk, but it does lend some sort of enclosure, and it makes it feel like a room that is comfortable to be in and not just totally open to what is happening in the public realm. So, you know, take that for what it's worth.
We've discussed it a lot in terms of option and perception, and it becomes very personal, but that was our thinking behind it.
Yeah, and I appreciate, you know, again, and everyone probably has their own perception of what their comfort levels are. So, you know, my wife and I were thinking like, you know, we would feel, you know, we'd like to plant some landscape in there, nothing large, but have some bushes and maybe like a Japanese maple or something like that. So you're walking, so you know, we felt like it would be more open and inviting by not having the rail there. But we would have a separation with the landscape. And that's kind of how we were, you know, thinking about it, you know, like sitting there. So, but I could certainly understand, the idea of like, you know, having a separation or something too, you know, everyone kind of probably has their own comfort levels, you know, so.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Dulick?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yeah, really appreciate doing the aging in place, thinking in terms of prototypes, and really like meeting some of those really important requirements and something that feels really appropriate. I kind of like the open porch. I think handling it with landscape or furniture, a couple of, you know, there's just so many ways to do it that I think it's actually fine and does feel more open. I do want to talk a little bit about the detailing though. I think the larger trim, and within your budget, but I think that that trim really being of a larger scale, even a couple inches bigger would be great. And along those lines, I really appreciate your use of the gable, like false gable. I don't mean false as a pejorative, but that that almost graphic gable with that nice overhang. I think that's really, my grandparents grew up, they had a house like that. It's a
Yeah.
classic move to play the scale you're making. But I know their house, and what would be good to see is to let that eave and gutter you're making the effort, just let it return for a reasonable distance so that it feels like it's an appropriate scale, so it doesn't feel like it's tacked on, and which it in fact is, but that's okay. Because it's a really, it's a really clever device and a classic device, but I really like to see that stretch before, so you almost have that little roof return there. Gather a little bit more water and just give it a better sense of scale. I think the corner boards kind of come under that, and then really look at how the siding meets the eave. I think some trim there would be help. I think these are suggestions that should fit well within your budget, but I think looking at the scale of the details, yeah, and the columns may be a little bit chunky, but I know you guys have worked hard on this, and it's overall, I mean, I think this is a really, really great example of a kind of appropriate and affordable design that we'd certainly like to see in our historic districts, especially this one. So those are just some suggestions to make it even nicer. Thank you.
That's a good point on the eave return. Again, the elevations do show that trim and do show some of the things that you had mentioned, but we did make that proud, a good 18 inches to really define it, but I like your idea of.
And that's great.
Returning it on the side elevations.
Even another 18 inches
Yes, exactly.
would I think really make it look even nicer. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you, Mr. Dulick. Other questions and comments, Mr. Samberry?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I would echo a lot of what Mr. Dulick just said. I think first, I think this is a great project. I think you've done a great job designing this. I think the trim details can make it, pop a little bit more. The other thing kind of drew my attention immediately is the width of the porch, and why not just bring it to the full extent of the house.
Kind of nice to have it nested within the volume behind it. Right? It's 18 inches pulled off both sides just to get that.
It's a personal, I'm not saying it's.
We looked at it.
But personally, I just feel like give yourself just that little bit more porch and bring it all the way to the edge. But other than that, I think it was a great design.
Thank you, Mr. Samberry. I'd echo everything that said. I think it's very appropriate. It's aligned with the priorities of the city, and architectural scale is fits in nicely into the district. So I'm in full support of it also. But go some of the details on comments. Ms. Anderson?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really like the direction this is going in, and I think the neighborhood is going to be very welcoming of this house. I agree with the comments of my fellow commissioners, and I would like to make sure that the white is not a titanium white. It's something more appropriate, a more historic shade of white. I like that there's a nice trim around the windows. Something a little more substantial would be good, and I'd like the idea of the return on the gable. I think the porch columns need to be refined a little bit. I think they need to be a little more slender to maintain the consistency with the homes around there. And I like the idea of the backyard, preserving the backyard. I think that's important to people for a lot of reasons. But yeah, overall, I'm very supportive. I ideally would, at least on the front elevation, would prefer to see the hardy as opposed to the vinyl. Yeah. I think that, like I said, I think the neighborhood's going to be very receptive to this design. So I appreciate all your thought here.
Thank you, Ms. Anderson.
So that's
Just to address that has been a concern of ours, balancing landmark requirements and the affordability, and we've already priced out hardy for the full siding. in a lot of the tax credit multifamily that we've done, we know what those requirements are for the state in terms of the gauge, and we're seeing much thicker vinyls come on the market as this becomes the only siding that's really within most people's affordability. It's kind of fun to be an old guy and see hardy board be the economic choice in the 90s and now be the luxury choice. But what we'd like to do is we've been doing research on vinyl sidings and finding a really good name brand thicker gauge vinyls that won't warp or are less inclined to warp and break away, and use that as a proposal with a backup for if that's not, if you're not convinced by the specifications that we bring at final, to then fall back upon a hardy facade and do our best to match the rest of it in a less expensive option. Is that a reasonable approach to take to this, in Yohol's opinion?
In many cases, yes, we will, we recommend or party for the front elevations, and we'll make concessions for the sides and rear to go to vinyl, since, just so that we're aligning with the requirements for at minimum the primary elevation. If you're going to do that, we ask for the profiles to be the same, right? So that it's not as noticeable that the material changes from front to sides.
It's hard to keep that matched together, both in pre-manufactured colors and custom colors and section.
Can I just make a comment? So, yeah, researching this too, again, taking consideration the green communities and that criteria, and then looking at the VOC and everything else in production and the carbon footprint and everything. So I was taking that into consideration. On the vinyl siding, I was looking at the foam back siding, so it's a more rigid, it's a more durable products, more expensive. On the profiles, if we go with a hardy board on the front, and again, I like hardy board. I've had that in my house before, used it throughout the years. So the profile, there's really no way to match the profile on the sides with the vinyl. I've done this a lot, and even again trying to cut your hardy to a narrow dimension, it really never matches, and the paint doesn't take as well as you can't match the color perfectly. So that's why I was preferring that, we could use a foam back, use a higher grade. It won't fade, and that way it would be consistent on all four sides, and it would still have a nice look. If I go with a hardy board on the front for affordability's sake, you really, you're still gonna go vinyl on the three sides, because hardy board comes up to be roughly, even with the foam back, roughly about over twice the amount. So you'll look at about $16 a square foot as opposed to about $8 a square foot with the foam back, and then you got to add paint on it. And if I go, I'm not looking at cheap siding like 0.44 or something like that. That costs like $250. I wouldn't even put that on a house. You know what I mean? So, but for affordability, then you really, if you want to have aesthetically appealing, then you got to go hardy board all three sides, and then you're adding, even a house of this size, considerable amount of money. So that's why I was looking for, looking to go with a higher quality side, vinyl siding.
I think we can present a next review what we would propose with the specs and the profiles, and a backup of what you more naturally see for this condition. And if we can't convince you, then we've got a plan still going forward.
That's perfect. Okay. Yeah, please bring it forward. Yeah, I think that's a great plan. Other questions and comments from the commission? Mr. Lozier, your hand was up and then down. Had we answered your questions?
Yes, it was primarily about the hardy versus vinyl siding question, and I think the discussion I think clarified what my question was, or what my comment was going to be. So thank you.
All right, excellent. Any further questions and comments from the commission? All right, since this is a schematic review, we do not take a vote. Do you feel like you received enough feedback on your design to continue the development?
So, no, it was very helpful.
Excellent. Well, then we look forward to seeing you come back with your final solution.
Sounds good.
All right,
Thank you.
Thank you. That concludes our schematic plan reviews. We'll then move on to administrative reports.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. Just wanted to note that Cleveland History Days starts on Friday, June 19th, which is also Juneteenth, so City Hall will be closed that day. So all the business you were going to do here, you can just go do Cleveland History Day stuff. Also, a week or two ago, I sent out an email about the National Advisory or National Association of Preservation Conferences training, August 20th to 21st. If anyone would like to attend that, it's certainly within our budget. You can earn up to 9 continuing education credits. I know a couple of you have said you'd like to attend, and there's 6 sessions over the 2 days. So even if you can't make all of them, I think there are some great topics that I think would be helpful for all of us to, I guess, just hear what other people think on and best practices and all that. So let me know, I guess, I don't know, within the next few days, if you're able to make it or not, because I'd like to start on the process of getting the city to pay for that, which is always a longer process than I think. And then finally, just wanted to note that the Heritage Ohio Conference is this October. So that more details on that to come, but it's going to be in Canton this year. So if anyone wants to visit Canton, that's the time to do it.
Excellent.
And that is all.
All right. Well, I believe that's all we have for today's meeting then. So we will adjourn today's meeting and look forward to seeing everybody at our next meeting in 2 weeks. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.